Conversations from the front lines of recruiting. This is Hireside Chats. Join us as we delve into the world of recruitment and explore the latest trends, challenges, opportunities, and insights from the best in the business. Get inspired by industry veterans and discover the secrets to building powerful talent functions from their experiences. Whether you're a CO, a seasoned HR professional, a growing business looking to scale, or someone just starting in the field, there's something for everyone. Ready for the ultimate recruitment power-up? Let's go!
Hello and welcome to Hireside Chats, an exclusive show brought to you by Diamondpick that brings together insights, news, and views from industry leaders as they chat with us about how smart and effective hiring decisions are made. I'm your host, Stat J. In today's episode, we will chat with an IT industry veteran, an academician, an entrepreneur, and a thought leader about what it takes to be successful in the current IT recruiting landscape. Our guest today is Mr. Ramkumar Ramamurthy, founder and partner, Catalings LLP, a tech advisory firm that enables small tech companies to rapidly scale and grow their businesses. Ramkumar has over 30 years of professional experience working with two of the largest private employers in India, Tata Consultancy Services and Cognizant, who together employ over 10 lakh professionals today. He's been on the academic leadership board of several universities and national academic bodies like the Chennai Mathematical Institute and has had long associations with several professional and trade bodies in India, including AICTE, IT BPM Skill Sector Council of NASSCOM, and the CII. With his many years of professional experience and industry knowledge, Ramkumar has some unique insights to share with us on the importance of data-led hiring and newer dimensions in the talent intelligence space. Be sure to listen all the way through. Hi Ram, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you as our guest on our inaugural episode. We request you to formally launch the Diamondpick 2023 Talent Strategy Playbook. A few words from you on your initial thoughts after receiving the 23 Talent Playbook.
Thanks, Satish, for inviting me to the Hireside Chat. I'm happy to launch the first edition of the Diamondpick Talent Playbook. As you know, a lot has changed in the talent landscape in the last 3 years, in part driven by the pandemic. And as such, a playbook like this is very timely. Also, in my long corporate career, I've never seen editorials and raging debates on so many interesting topics on talent in the recent years, be it moonlighting, quiet quitting, 4-day working weeks, hybrid working, gig working, open talent ecosystems, returnship or hiring back alumni, building talent communities, etc. The canvas has become quite fascinating, to say the least. Seen in this context, I found the playbook quite comprehensive, covering about 10 or 11 broad topics of great relevance today, specifically around talent acquisition, including topics like hybrid hiring, talent networks, recruitment marketing, service design thinking, etc. The playbook also covers many new trends. I was a little surprised with the inclusion of conversational AI and metaverse in the playbook. And these together are driving the reimagination of the entire talent acquisition process, what I would prefer to call the 5 Ps: people, practices, processes, platforms, and partnerships. I found the insights in the playbook to be quite incisive and data-driven, but more importantly, the takeaways are quite actionable. The fact that each of the topics is covered in a capsule, not more than 2 pages, including the takeaways, makes this entire playbook eminently readable as well as digestible.
Thank you, Ram. And let me also take this opportunity to thank and appreciate the research team that did a lot of hard work in putting together the playbook. So kudos to them. I wanted you to share with us a little bit about Catalings, how it came into being. How was your advisory model different? And what's the early success you've had in scaling and growing your portfolio of companies?
Yeah. So after spending a little over 22 years at Cognizant, when I stepped down, I wanted to get back to my first calling, which is academia or higher education. That's where I spent my first 6 years of my professional career as a lecturer. I took a role with a world-renowned institution, the Chennai Mathematical Institute, and also spent considerable time with the fledgling university, Kriya University, as its Pro-Chancellor for Professional Learning, primarily focusing on the MBA program and work-integrated learning programs for working professionals. I should admit that the clock speed of academia hasn't changed in the last 25 years. I had so much more time on me. That's when the idea of Catlinks came about. I realized that given my long years of experience in the tech industry, I didn't want the learnings along the way to go waste. As such, I joined hands with some wonderful long-time colleagues of mine from Cognizant, almost every one of them, Satish. And we collectively founded Catlinks. Our vision is to coach and mentor small tech companies and enable them to grow at an accelerated clip. See, despite the tech industry having been around for 50 plus years, we only have a handful of tech services companies from India with over $1 billion in annual revenue. But then we have hundreds, if not thousands, of companies under $100 million in revenue. So as a team of practitioners who have built several billion-dollar practices at Cognizant, we thought, why not we help smaller companies build those muscles needed to get to $1 billion or more in revenue over a period of time. But as we started, we realized that many of these companies, given their size and the fact that they were transitioning from the inception phase to the growth phase, that they didn't have the wherewithal to pay us a salary, if you will, commensurate with their experience. So we came up with this unique commercial model, what we later called Grow First, Pay Later, where the companies that we work with pay us if and only if we hit the aggressive milestones that we sign up for in terms of revenue and margin over, say, a 3 to 5 year period. And if we don't hit those numbers, we get paid nothing. Yeah, you heard it right. Nothing. It's a kind of a skin in the game, outcome based or success linked fee, or whatever you want to call it. We today have about 3 clients specializing in digital engineering, cloud and data, and digital commerce. Yeah, if you want me to call out success, it's early days. But then what is heartening is we are seeing this model resonate very well in the market. Now, why do I say so? Because we have evaluated about 40 prospects so far, all inbound inquiries with 0 sales and marketing.
Sounds like a very exciting and interesting model, Ram. I wish you and your team the very best. Now let's talk about the times we are going through. The talent game is changing as we speak, and there are so many new challenges that are coming to light as a result of today's dynamic market scenario. What are you seeing in the recruiting landscape at the moment, and what is it that organizations are doing to be successful with the challenges out there?
Satish, if you look over the last few years, I think hiring has become more specific, catering to very specific talent demands. And as a result, jobs are more distinct and the skills required for these jobs are multidisciplinary, which I think is point number 1. But unfortunately, the practices and processes that helped companies to be successful until now are no longer in sync with the newer requirements in the market. Further, there is the added challenge of widening skills gap or fewer full-time employees with more and more people needing greater flexibility, and the pressure to deliver talent solutions in an increasingly fast-paced and unpredictable business environment. That I think is the big shift in the talent market. But having said that, I think this new normal provides companies and talent acquisition leaders an opportunity to reimagine ways of sourcing, attracting, hiring, and onboarding the most appropriate talent for a given role using innovative hiring tools and modes. Whether these are newer technologies and platforms, talent intelligence, service-oriented design thinking, talent community networks, etc., many of which the Playbook actually covers. This can be done while driving unique candidate experiences.
So Ram, you have been in the industry for more than 30 years. In your opinion, what's the secret sauce to winning the war for talent?
I think the holy grail for any company is to get the right candidate at the right time and at the right cost. And if I may qualify the right candidate a bit, it includes the right cultural alignment with the larger organizational purpose and the DNA of the organization. It would be difficult for me to call out one thing as a secret sauce or a silver bullet. If I may, in addition to what's being done in the normal course, I would highlight an important emerging area that needs very close attention, which is implementing a digital platform strategy. A digital platform that covers the entire hiring journey, from creating profiles to sending in the application, followed up with interviews and onboarding. That's fully aligned with the business capability management, if you will, demand management, resource forecasting and management assessment. I think this is a crying need in today's context. And as the talent market grows in size and complexity, the different silos that exist across a talent continuum, that will have to come together to reduce complexity, increase efficiency, and also provide that much needed personalized experience with candidates. So from a hiring standpoint, having such a platform that integrates the different channels will enable both buying as well as shaping the talent of the future, while giving the ability to measure that experience, drive the needed agility into the process, and to also ensure repeatability and, if I may add, institutionalization. Given that attrition even within the HR teams is quite elevated, I think that repeatability and institutionalization become even more important in today's context than before.
Well said, Ram. Totally agree with your points. Now let's just quickly talk a little bit about another interesting topic which we believe is going to shape the workforce and organizations of the future: talent intelligence. With so much uncertainty, especially around jobs in the tech industry and the future of work and skills, companies are being tasked to adapt quickly if they want to hire and retain the best talent. To thrive, however, they must adopt innovation and new strategies that serve the current and the future needs of the organization, its people and its customers. Now, one such topic trending in the recruiting circles, and like you rightly mentioned, is talent intelligence-led hiring, and how it is fast becoming the most effective way for companies to recruit top talent, retain top performers, and rescale their workforce. So my first question to you on this topic is, why developing a data-driven recruiting process should be a high priority in this current state talent landscape?
Today, talent acquisition leaders have access to rich talent data, which wasn't available as much earlier. And this comes from various systems, both internal as well as external. And if you look at the external systems, these would include job boards like Naukri, LinkedIn platform, learning platforms like NPTEL and SWAYAM, along with the edtech platforms that are there in the marketplace, campus portals like the global campus portal Piazza, as well as certification partner engines, amongst several others. Now, this data helps talent managers get better visibility of the talent pool and also to identify pain points, whether these are skill gaps, talent demand, etc., to make very informed hiring decisions. So with intelligence, one can diagnose those talent patterns and also create actionable insights. And these could be using market insights, demand insights, supply insights. Demand insights, for example, include geographies, business units, service line with the highest hiring propensity. Let me give you an example in today's context. Up until last year, when the going was great, a lot of emphasis was on discretionary spending. And today, with talk about a potential downturn, I think the focus has shifted to lights on, business as usual software activities, which means that there is going to be a sudden shift in the profile of capabilities, skills that are needed in the marketplace. Now, this intelligence has to be picked up both from within as well as outside. So my real question is, you can pick this up even from listening to the earnings calls of your competitors, because that can be a lead indicator over and above the intelligence that comes from within the system, purely based on the business pipeline and the closure. Second is supply insights that include talent and skill availability based on a given location, based on demographics, etc. I told you that I did spend some time with this new university, Kriya University. There are a little over 300 state private universities that have come about in India just in the last few years. 5 from Ashoka to Asim Premji, Shivnad are here in Chennai, Kriya University, etc. And the profile of courses and the combination of programs that they offer is amazing. It's important that we probably look at the data and intelligence that emanates from these institutions. Because today you can do a combination of computing or computer science with anthropology. You can do it with data science and history, so on and so forth. A talent pool that was not made available in India over the last 30, 40, 50 years, if I may. Third is obviously the labor market insights, which include compensation trends, candidate preferences, so on and so forth. Yeah, once again, just look at the last 1 year. Look at the flip-flop or the yo-yoing that we have seen. Until a few months back, given the elevated attrition, companies were paying what the candidates asked for. But today, we believe that there is a moderation that's happening in the marketplace. So I think some of this will have to be looked at very closely by hiring managers so that you are in sync, or if not, ahead of the game, which I think is very important for any organization.
What are you seeing in terms of talent data-led hiring, and how do you think people can effectively leverage it to make smart hiring decisions?
I think one aspect that hiring managers need to understand is smart hiring decisions directly results in smart business decisions. Let me give you an example from the past, something that I lived through in the Cognizant context. About 15 years back, Cognizant decided to look at tier 2 cities for expansion. And we homed in on Coimbatore purely on the base of data and intelligence. Data was available to everybody, but I think the added intelligence is what flipped the decision in favor of Coimbatore. So we looked at the student throughput from some of the reputable engineering institutions in Coimbatore. I think many of them are quite well known. But we also looked at beyond Coimbatore into neighboring Kerala, because Kerala did not have a thriving tech ecosystem then. So the ability to attract from places like Palakkad and Cochin was also a very important dimension that we looked at. Second is, we realized that we also needed more women in the workforce. We looked at the number of women graduates passing out of those institutions and their active participation in the workforce, which is quite low then. A very interesting facet of talent intelligence, Coimbatore has historically been a great manufacturing base, known for industrial engineering, precision engineering, so on and so forth. In fact, I'm told that one of the largest producer of pumps is Coimbatore. So many of the candidates that we were able to hire were very open to working in 2 shifts because they've actually seen their parents work in 2 shifts. And given that anywhere to anywhere in Coimbatore then, I need to quantify, took only about 15 to 20 minutes. People got so much time in the morning or later in the evening when they were able to work in 2 shifts, and they really enjoyed it. And we also realized that internally, many of the mid-managers in Cognizant who had hailed from Coimbatore, they were very happy to get back to their base station. So it was a win-win situation by looking at data and intelligence both from within as well as outside. And today, if you look at it, Cognizant is perhaps the only company, I hope I am right, and I would like to stand corrected if indeed this data is not true. It's probably the only company to have over 15,000 employees in a tier 2 location in India. 50% of the workforce being women employees, relatively lower attrition, and a terrific infrastructure and cost leverage because we were able to operate 2 shifts. So this is a classic example of how you can curate talent for specific needs in an organization through internal data, external data, and by deriving actionable insights from it.
Thank you for those brilliant insights. Next question is on specifically diagnosis. What are some of the talent intelligence-led interventions that will help diagnose talent needs?
I think it's just not diagnosing talent needs, but also diagnosing organizations by looking at talent that's available. And I believe that there can be multiple talent intelligence interventions. One is to drive a strategic workforce planning, which is aligned to business priorities, which I think is extremely important in any organization, especially when they are carrying a strategic bench. Effective compensation and benefits bench. I have seen in my past life that suddenly you bring in a large proportion of people at a given level at the 90th percentile of the grid, what it does to inflate the cost of doing business for an organization, but more importantly, the cascading effect that this can have on the organization with subsequent promotion cycles, so on. Third, it can provide very valuable insights to campaigns and job promotions which help you target the right people. And finally, I think it also helps you, going back to the Coimbatore example that I gave a few minutes back, understanding the location feasibility in selection, etc. In fact, I was in one of the government meetings where the government was exploring areas where it could promote IT based on the available talent. Interestingly, Trichy came up in that conversation. And if you come to think of it, I'm actually surprised as to why financial services companies haven't made a beeline for Trichy. You have so many well-established educational institutions, whether it's St. Joseph's, Bishop Heber, Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy, National College, Kaveri College. If you go back and then look at it, these are all institutions that have been around for 50 plus years. And let me say it in a lighter vein. If Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College can produce the Finance Minister of India, the college can produce a wealth manager or an asset manager. So I think it's also important for people to prize open some of these opportunities that have been quite untapped. And I can tell you there's one healthcare company that made a big impact on Trichy, Omega Healthcare. They have several thousand employees in India and they have ramped up fairly quickly. I'm told that they have 5,000 employees in Trichy today, all in double quick time. So just imagine the amount of intelligence that's available and which can be leveraged by both sides. Fine, both by the organization as well as by the talent.
So Ram, very often what I realized is whether it is the talent organization or the HR organization, they create a lot of MIS, reports, intelligence. A lot of that input is not utilized or not even seen by the users. How does one best identify what data and talent intelligence is required to track? And how do you think it can effectively drive hiring actions?
Now, I think there is a big movement in literature where they used to call it the art for art's sake movement. So I don't think we need to look at technology for the sake of technology or data for the sake of data. And unless they are relevant, it doesn't make sense for us to go after every piece of data that's made available there. So I think it's very important to identify what data is required to drive important decisions and also identify the key parameters. So there's so much data out there that HR leaders need to understand how to distill them and separate signal from noise. So what are the key elements for hiring? One, as I told a few minutes back, is it to do with supply? Is it to do with demand? Is it to do with the cost? Or is it to do with competition? Fine, I'll tell you a fascinating thing that's happening in the last 6 to 12 months in Coimbatore. Gave you the example of Cognizant establishing its presence 15 years back, right? Outside, we didn't have too many large players. Ford set up a captive unit there, and a few other activities happen. In the last 1 year, close to half a dozen to a dozen companies have actually entered Coimbatore and established a fairly large presence just by understanding the competitive landscape in terms of talent that's available. Whether it's Accenture, Mindtree, L&T Infotech in the erstwhile context, IBM, some of the biggest of the big majors are gravitating to Coimbatore, which clearly is some kind of an indication that they have identified the right data and looked at that while distilling the noise out or filtering out the noise. I think talent acquisition leaders must leverage insights like the demographic ratios, the preferences to determine what the talent spread is, what the talent density is for a particular job or skill requirement.
Very interesting example, especially Trichy. These were, in my view, times when organizations took the decision, tough call of moving to a tier 2 center, how it really impacted delivery. And in addition to those, can you share a couple of examples of a recruitment or a talent strategy that was elevated with the use of metrics and talent intelligence? Anything that comes to your mind?
Well, let me give you one very concrete example with metrics, and the other one is soft intelligence. It's just not hard intelligence, because I think HR managers also need to look at the softer intelligence. Data science today is perhaps one of the hottest skills in the marketplace. Every other report seems to put data science right up there in the pecking order. So if you look at the history of analytics talent in India, actually we had pure play analytics companies in the 90s in India. You had MarketRx, you had Marketix, you had Inductis, all headquartered in the NCR region. All three companies got acquired, one by EXL, one by WNS, one by Cognizant. And at one point in time, that was seen as the breeding ground for good analytics talent. Then it got a little spread out, fine with Absolute Data and others coming up, where Mumbai and Bangalore got added to the list. But then suddenly, there is a lot of attention on Chennai today, with Latent View going public, with Tiger Analytics, Crayon Data, Matchstreet 10, Ganit, and several of these data analytics companies, Agilisium, Indium, having had their large operations here in Chennai. Over and above the large players who have always had Chennai as a great location for their data warehousing, business intelligence, corporate performance management, as well as the analytics space. So if you dig a little deeper, this is where I think data and intelligence get separated. For horizontal analytics, you have talent across India. By horizontal analytics, I mean customer experience analytics, sales and marketing analytics, people analytics that cut across multiple industries. That's a pan-India phenomenon. But if you look at domain-specific analytics, in fact, this is one of the reasons why companies that are headquartered in Bangalore and Mumbai are also looking at Chennai, and some have established their base here. Once they look at analytics capability at the intersection of a given industry and analytics capability, whether it's fraud and risk in the area of financial services, whether it's health analytics in pharma or healthcare. So I think this level of intelligence is extremely important to figure out where that level of talent is available. And outside of it, see, it's not that we probably have 1 million data analysts out there for people to hire. A lot of the data analysts are also being shaped directly from educational institutions. So it's one of the reasons why people also need to look at not just companies, but also the ecosystem. So if you look at the ecosystem here in and around Tamil Nadu, which is the reason why suddenly we are seeing a significant focus in this market, is Great Lakes, as you would know, about 10 years back, launched a very highly successful business analytics program. I used to run a program under Nachiket Moore for quantitative analysis and financial mathematics, a very highly successful program. Recently, I was attending an event at the Chennai International Center, CIC, where Dr. Kamakoti, the current director of IIT, was one of the speakers. He made a very interesting observation. He said after 50 years of IIT Madras, they have 11,500 students at their campus, pursuing all disciplines of bachelor's, master's, PhD, postdoctoral research, etc. About a year back, they launched a BS in data science. At the end of the third year, you can get a BSc, and the fourth year, you can get a BS. Guess how many students are currently pursuing it? 16,000 students in data science. So I think it's extremely important for people to understand where this talent is available at the incubation period, at the mature period, and at the specialist period. So I think this is one example. The second example might probably seem a little offbeat, but nevertheless, in the interest of opening up a conversation, let me use this example. Apart from analytics, the one other big opportunity that people are looking at is cybersecurity. In fact, one of the recent earnings calls, Accenture CEO Julie Sweet, in her prepared remarks, she made a statement that Accenture has about 10,000 security professionals. And I think it's not that they could have probably recruited 10,000 people from the market, because a market for such a talent just did not exist. They actually shape talent. I've been having this conversation on how do we increase the throughput of cyber and forensic professionals in the marketplace. In one such interesting conversation, a topic that came up, and I've been researching on that. There is enough literature that's available even if you go to Google search. See, whenever there is a new capability, what you do is you look at existing capability and see who all can potentially be trained or cross-trained into the newer capability, right? From Java to Python, and then from and so on and so forth. So if you look at it here, it's not a technical skill, but probably a soft skill. I know of a few organizations that want to build out the cybersecurity capability, who are looking internally within the organization to find out how many of them are chess professionals. Find people who have some ranking in this body called FIDE and see if they can be leveraged and shaped into cybersecurity professionals. So if you look at in the game of chess, it's very similar to the activities in the cyber world. Players must outsmart their opponents, capitalize on their weakness in a timely and strategic manner, and think numerous steps ahead of them. So it's all about having a strategy, mastery of tactics, determine what the opponent will do next by getting into the opponent's mind, if you will, and ensuring that these things get done in double quick time. If you do not move fast enough, then the opponent will get an advantage. As such, it's all a question of sense and response, and then you deciding whether you want to probably go down the defense path or the offense path. So I think it's important for people to also look beyond the traditional hard technical skills. Also look at what soft skills will get people to take on certain job roles that are opening up in the marketplace. If you look at the World Economic Forum, the skills of the future, they talk about learning agility, they talk about advanced creativity, so on and so forth. Now, I think these soft skills also come into play in a meaningful fashion when you look around for talent.
Some very interesting examples, Ram, and thank you very much for sharing these insights. I think you very clearly nailed the significance of being armed with talent intelligence gained from a wealth of data and putting that into practice and building the workforce of the future. Some of the examples that you provided actually will force organizations and the talent teams to think through and start building the workforce for their respective organizations. Before we sign out, I'm sure our listeners would like to know, and this is one last question from my side, what's on your radar in 2023 that wasn't in 2022?
Once again, this is probably more from experience, given that many of us were exposed to the financial meltdown in the 2008-2009 timeframe. I think organizations and talent leaders will have to play a kind of a contra role, a counterintuitive role, if you will, during troubled times. And my recommendation would be to hire ahead of demand. See, during the downturn, some of the best candidates across levels who were otherwise not available in the marketplace for hiring are usually made available today. And I'm sure that we are all reading reports of people being laid off from some of the best known companies in the world. And I'm sure that they would have hired some of the best in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I think it's probably the finest time to hire both locally and globally. And I know it's cliche, but I would nevertheless go ahead and say it. As they say, never waste a crisis.
Really appreciate your insights, Ram. It was wonderful talking to you the last 20 odd minutes. If you have any questions for our guest, Mr. Ram Kumar, you could click on the link below in the show notes to record your question here. This brings us to the end of the episode, our first episode from Diamondpick Hireside Chats. Thank you, Ram, for sharing with us your insightful views on the talent intelligence areas and how to best use it to elevate recruiting practices. And to all those who tuned in, thank you very much for listening to Hireside Chats with me, Sajay. Join us on the next episode as we continue to bring you the latest and the best from the recruitment world to help you make smart hiring decisions that are destined for success. You can subscribe to this podcast on any of the podcasting apps of your choice. Thank you very much and wish you the best.